So, Slormancer is a game I have actually covered before, believe it or not. Back in the day, in like 2021, I made a review of this game. Now, I don't call my videos reviews even now anymore because I don't really feel like I fit into that role very well. But back then I did. I called it a review and I was like, okay, we're going to talk a little bit about it. And we did. It was very much in the same style that I do now, just in my opinion, in just about every aspect worse. So I thought today we'd go back and re-review it, partially because the overview sucked, and mostly because the game has gotten a bunch of other updates and it's gotten so much more content and stuff to go through and talk about, and balance patches and a lot of stuff. So I thought we'd go in, talk a little bit about it again today, because I still really like this game. And if you end up liking the video, remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and let's get right into it. So, what is the Slormancer? The Slormancer is a top-down ARPG. Definitely in the style of Diablo or something like that, where you look from the top down and then you move. However, it's only really on the surface like Diablo. A lot of the gameplay is very much so different. Being that for one, you actually don't select an enemy here, you just have a giant AoE that you hit with every attack. There's a bunch of skills you can go into, you can level up the different skills, and there is no multiplayer. That would be like the main differentiators. It does play quite a lot like something like Diablo, part of Exile. However, I would call this one in a lot of ways better, with one of my favorite endgame systems in any game, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Slormancer in general is a looting game. You go through dungeons, you collect loot to make your character stronger, to then continue to make your character stronger, to fight bigger and better enemies, to do bigger and better dungeons. However, in Slormancer, you don't get weapons in the same sense that you do in other games. In Slormancer, when you get a new weapon, it's called a Reaper. It is a random drop. However, it has a set amount of stats on each of the weapons. It works sort of like, I like to compare it to Pokemon, where if you use the Reaper, there's a chance that it will level up. Well, not a chance, there's a set amount of XP you need to get. And once you've gotten the XP, it levels up, and at some point it can evolve into a better Reaper. And you can sort of do that chain throughout the entire game. There's a bunch of them. I'll quickly flash on screen how many there are, because it's pretty insane. And there are those for each class, and I really like that system. So, how do you get Reapers? Well, to get Reapers, you have to close down rifts. Rifts are essentially this game's way of spawning a bunch of enemies at once without taking up too much strain by having them already be there. And by closing them down, you get a bunch of loot, you get some gear and some slorms, which we'll talk a little bit about later, but you also have a chance of Reapers. Reapers are in general, for me at least, the cool drop is like this giant blue sword, and it always makes me go for it because if you get that, it's a new weapon that can have completely different mechanics to the old weapon. A really nice example, in my opinion, of that is that you have a sword that has this little elemental crystal that floats around you that then shoots a little bullet out at the enemies. You have some that are just straight up strength based and so on. There are a bunch of different versions or variants and whatnot, and they can all be leveled up and played more around with. And there's a bunch of systems that actually interact with them. You can get gyms that you can slot in a specific gym section that can then give you different effects on your Reaper. One of the ones I have is just base XP gain. Now, how do you then get the gear? That's the big question. What content will you be doing? Well, to begin off with, there is the main story, which revolves around the main hero of the village dying, and then you, a lowly, pessimistic, little, ugly, slightly fat knight, will have to take up the job. Or you can be a wizard or huntress. You have options there. But essentially, it revolves around that, and then the entire plot is just sort of comical and jokey, which honestly isn't bad. The plot itself is fairly good, and it stays honestly sort of funny throughout the entire thing, as it doesn't take itself seriously, nor does it seem like it wants to be taken seriously. However, in terms of loot, what you'll be doing from most missions is just closing rifts. You go through a dungeon-esque area and you just close down some rifts. It's fairly simple in terms of gameplay. However, some rifts are red. When they're red, that means that you'll get a curse from closing them. A curse can be lifted by closing even more rifts, and it has this reward, sort of akin to the idea that roguelites have, where you can take a curse for a set amount of time or actions, and then once you're done that thing, then you'll get a big reward. They're the exactly same thing, and then there are the golden, rifts. The golden rifts essentially just give you a buff. They add like the pylons from other ARPGs like Diablo, where you get a buff that could be lightning strike, attack speed, so on. Like, it can be anything really, and you get that, and that's pretty much the variance in rifts. Some of them have bosses, some of them don't. However, that's not all you'll be doing. There is the main story like we talked about with rifts and whatnot, then there's the expeditions. Expeditions are like mapping in Path of Exile, as like the closest thing I can describe them to anyway, where you have a set amount of tiers. The tiers determine the difficulty. They can be on every single map tile that you have unlocked or like play through in the main story, and they are just about closing down rifts. They play a lot like the main story, however you can go infinitely. The further you go in, the harder the enemies will become, but the bigger your reward will be. Every 4th or 5th level there'll be a boss that you have to fight, and it's sort of just that looped over and over again into infinitum. This is not a bad system, however, because on the base, Slormancer is really fun to play, and that's like super important in my opinion, because this combat feels really good. The building into your different builds feels really good, and obviously that's not all the content in the game. Currently, there are 2 other things you can do. You can do the Ancient Tower, which is this tower you go into. You can go into multiple floors. The further you get up, the harder it becomes, obviously, with an entire different vendor system to upgrade both your chances within the tower, however, also the gear you get. And there is hidden slormites, reapers, and so on hidden behind the tower that are exclusive to that area. Then you have the forge as well, which is sort of the same thing. It is a little area that you have to defend, where you'll have a wave of enemies come in. Then you just slap them a couple of times until they're dead, and then you get to choose a debuff to yourself or like a buff to the enemies that will last in either a set amount of time or throughout the entire run, that then increases the amount of rewards you'll get by the end. You choose yourself when you want to end, and then you can use that, like the rewards that you just gained, to then further upgrade your character, to then do better expeditions, to then do better towers, to then do better forges, to then do better, and so on, right? And each of the different things, like the tower as an example, has its own set rewards as well. And so does the Forge. The Forge has these slormites that can be used to create another Reaper that's unique to the Forge, where you need a set amount of each of them. However, you can also unlock gems that can be slapped into your Reapers to increase XP gain or other things like damage and whatnot. You can also upgrade your proficiency with the different Reapers by just gathering materials, and then you become stronger with that type or like that house of Reapers. And that's practically like the system and the gameplay that you'll be doing. It's honestly extremely fun, in my opinion. Like, all of it is really well made, as in it feels complete when you're playing it. It doesn't feel like there needs to be added a whole lot more to it. And the thing is, obviously, when you have your endgame build, I think in every ARPG player knows that, you'll end up being completely overpowered. But the progression over there honestly feels pretty good. I'm not there yet, but so far it feels really good to play. So that's sort of the gameplay part of it done. However, then you might be wondering, what are these slormites you've been talking about? That's for the crafting system. Slormancer has a really interesting crafting system. I feel like it's sort of inspired by games such as Path of Exile, where you can take a white item, like a really common item, and make it legendary or unique in Path of Exile's case. You can do exactly that same thing in Slormancers that you do through slormites. So you go to the vendor and you can like upgrade the different stats. You can, however, also change the stats. But what I really like about it is that you can add stats. and that includes add fixes that it normally wouldn't have. So you could upgrade it to be a legendary with a random effect that you won't know until you have it. And that is honestly really cool, because then you have a yellow item that you really like the stats on, and then you upgrade it to a legendary item, and then, oh my god, it's that one legendary you have been wanting for your build. And it's sort of this system, because otherwise you can just get them in the wild, obviously, but there's like sort of these systems that work together to create this super satisfying thing. Then you equip your legendary, you can then upgrade its level by just killing monsters and using it. You then upgrade its level to get it to be more powerful with its stats, to have better benefits, and then you do the entire thing over and over and over, right? Like, it's that loop again and again, and it never gets old. It never gets unsatisfying. It's just a really, really fun loop. And it's such an interesting in-game system as well, right? Because you can get a white item that you like. You know, it has a really good mana regen. Then you upgrade it, and oh my god, it has a good max life. Exactly what you needed, right? And then you just keep on going. And you can do all of these things to it in the game right there. And I think that's really awesome, because even games like Diablo 4 that recently got a season 1 launch and managed to botch that, really doesn't have anything like it. It's like everything in Slormancer can technically be useful when you get it. It never feels like you are making progression because of it, right? Like in Diablo 4, when I get anything less than a yellow item, I'm not looking at it. I'm not bothering with it. In Slormancer, I can be. It depends on the item itself. Like, I have looked at green items and been like, okay, I can upgrade that from being green to being yellow to then being legendary, and so on. And I think that's a really awesome system, because it incentivizes exactly what it's all about, looting more. And it's something that a lot of, especially loot games, end up lacking in the later levels, where it feels like, okay, if I don't get these drops, it's not going to be worth it to even look at them. Now, the visuals to Slormancer are pixel art, and it's honestly awesome. It's that sort of cute pixel art that I grew up with back in my day, you know, where everything is sort of cutesy. It looks like really wholesome. Nothing looks like it's supposed to be taken super seriously, or it's like, oh my god, this is scary or realistic. It's just really vibey. It's a game that I turn my brain off to just like have fun. Like, I turn off the audio, I put on a podcast, or like the Dark Somnium's stories or something. Like, I do any of those things, and I just play Slormancer in the background, because it's such a good game for exactly that. Just to turn your brain off and vibe game. And it's really good at it. And the sound design, while being good, in my opinion, is like not bad at all. I don't personally use it too often because of exactly that. It's like a super vibey game where you just like turn it off, and then you spend a couple of minutes just hardcore grinding. And overall, I think it's a super good vibe to play because of, again, especially the visuals, as they're one, super clear, and they like reflect the attack patterns pretty well, and two, and more importantly to me, they're super cute, and they really make me want to spend more time with the game. Even the things that aren't supposed to probably be like giga cute are super cute, and if they aren't cute, they are just straight up cool, like a lot of the swords, which is the thing I'm playing a knight, which can bring us smoothly into talking about builds. Now, I'm playing a knight in Slormancer. Knights are the melee class of the game. They do use mana like every other class. However, as a knight, you have a set of skills that other classes obviously don't have. Now, your skills can be upgraded in a million ways. Like, there are so many combinations, I literally can't do the calculation. There are about 3 different specs you break into on each tier of the skill. You get, the high tier by just using the skill. And the same can be said for each ascension path, which you can change midway through, just like you can with the skills. Like, if you spend your hard-earned slorm on like upgrading the skills, then you can just change them midway through. It costs you nothing to do. You just have to go to a specific event and talk with them for a bit, and then like respec and do it again, and change around however much you want. And it's like that with everything, including the ascension tree, which the big like ascension tree, the main thing that might confuse you a little bit, is literally this Path of Exile skill tree. You start out in one place, the further you get into the story, the more you can select. So you just like select these areas and then you can like upgrade them through them. But you can like reset them passively without doing much, without it costing you anything or there being any form of punishment for it. And you can do it on each of the characters. I've only played Knight so far. And I don't have a good build going. What I'm doing right now is using the throwing sword with bleed on it, and then I like spread the bleed, I stack it up, and then I use the normal attack to just like proc the bleed effect, because in slormancer, bleed can be a status effect like it normally is, where it like takes down damage, essentially having dot damage. However, you can also spec it into being this huge nuke attack where it stacks up, and then if you slap an enemy, you can do a massive amount of damage to him. And there are different ways to play it than that. I've seen some really cool ones. I'll link a creator that makes spells for slormancer in the description, because I think it's really fucking dope. So there are like multiple ways of doing it. This is just like my way of doing it right now, and I will be changing once I have the gear for it, but I don't right now. Alright, let's address the big elephant in the room. So, you've been playing a lot of Diablo and you really enjoy it because of the multiplayer. Well, unfortunately in slormancer as of now, there's no co-op or multiplayer, and there's no plans to add it. I don't know if that'll be changed in the future. As far as I know, Nightmare Reaper didn't have any plans to have multiplayer in that either, but it does now. I don't know if that's going to be something to change, but right now there isn't any. But it doesn't really, change the product. I think it's fine without it. It would be fun to have it as well, but it doesn't right now, and it is what it is. I think the product is fine. I think the game is really good regardless, which is sort of why I want to end the video off. I think it's a really great game. I think it's well worth buying, and I think it's a game that even right now in its like last stages of early access is super fun to play, and I think it's going to be a blast to play when it comes out as well. So that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have a really wonderful night, and thank you for watching this far if you did. It honestly means the world to me to know that there's somebody watching this and enjoying it. So thanks for that, and I'll see you all later.